Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal. I'm Greg Anthony on this April 18th, 2017 day on our calendar. And we're going to talk today about Illuminati Rabbits Everywhere. And wow, are we in big trouble? And yesterday I did a show regarding the flat earth theory again. That was part of the show. And I have to tell you, it inspired me to talk about it for an hour to an ex-Navy friend of mine who was walking his dog at the park. And I began to just spout off about it. And wow, it just never stopped. And he had no idea. And he's not a good friend. I just see him a lot at the park and we walk our dogs together. And he spent 20 years in the Navy. And we had a very good conversation about it. And the more I talked about it, the more I started thinking, wow, are we in big trouble? I ended the conversation by stating this, that all truths really, can be found in the Bible. And the reason I believe that they have changed the size and shape of the earth and say we're spinning on a globe at incredible speeds and the sun is 330,000 miles away and we spin around it. It's the center of our world. Of course, it's pagan and occult. But the whole thing is geared on destroying the book of Genesis and God's creation. And boy, what a sad thing that most people don't understand it. And I said at the end of the conversation as I was walking, please don't tell anyone what we've talked about because they'll think I'm insane. And that's really true, isn't it? But the real insanity is not delving into the deceptions. And even in the Bible, it says all things will be revealed to you. And then I went back and, of course, decided to calm down a bit. Turned on the baseball game for a while to seem like I was in a normal state of mind. But I was sitting in front of my computer and I clicked on a CNN website because I was looking for something else, and here I saw something shocking. Okay, remember about a week ago, if you go back to my show, I did the occult significance of Easter, the occult significance, how they've basically hijacked this holiday, and the occult significance behind the Easter egg and everything else. But then I started thinking, after I saw this little clip, and let me explain the clip first, because boy, after I saw that, I said, boy, are we in deep trouble. We are in such deep trouble, because there's really three-prong approach to what they're doing. They have to have, well, we can boil it down to two. A one-world government, I believe a one-world state of satanic mind control is what they're really after. And then a one-world religion, which is based on Satan. And I've said many times, even the Vatican tells us that. And I remember I didn't listen to their Easter service this year, but last year, they opened up with, their Latin singing. And basically, if you translate it, it says they worship Lucifer. So I'm thinking, okay, the occult significance of Easter. I started thinking about it. I said, boy, many people in this country have no idea what we're talking about. And boy, are we in deep trouble. And everybody's now watching the saber rattling all over the world. Who's going to lob the first nuclear weapon? And what are they really up to? That's what everybody's talking about on the news, right? The tension in North Korea. But then I turned this, remember, now I'm at the CNN website. And I pulled it up again to look at it. And I see Barron Trump, Melania Trump, and Donald Trump out on the balcony And next to Trump is a Marine, but he's dressed in red, kind of looks like the old Revolutionary War suit. And behind him is a big rabbit. And all you can see are the ears as if they're coming up out of the Marine. Strange. And so then I said, wow, what is this? What's going on? What about the occult significance of the Easter Bunny? And look at this message he's giving his occult buddies. And if you turn this little clip on, it occurred at 10:26 a.m. yesterday. And basically what they were doing was hosting the annual Monday after Easter. It's an Easter egg roll at the White House. And I go, what the hell's that for? Now, they said 21,000 kids came to roll Easter eggs there, and this is an annual event. Last year, Obama had 35,000. And it's a national holiday only in Washington, D.C. So I started thinking, wow, look at this occult significance. Well, look at the message he's giving his occult buddies. And as they, began to sing the national anthem, Barron puts his hand over his heart. Melania puts her hand over his heart, and then she nudges President Trump, who seemingly forgot to do that, and he goes, puts his hand over his heart. So much for America first, right? Why don't we say occult and Satan and the Pope first? Now the message with these rabbit ears, I'm going, where did this come from? And what is the occult significance of the rabbit? And I found it hard to find information. And then I found one guy who did an extremely good presentation on it, which I'm going to play. But first, I started to think, I better understand what the significance is of this Easter roll. How long has it been around? Why did they do it? If they realize, now we understand, if you understand occult symbology, exactly why Trump put this message out and put the rabbit ears behind the Marine. And I believe, usually they dress in blue, right? They got him in red as if he's a Revolutionary War figure. And I said, that really tells us this hidden agenda of the occult's been around ever since the formation of this country. That was the message he was giving his buddies. And like I said, even the Bible tells us that to continue their protection that they get from God, which is short-lived, by the way, because none of them will ever see or be in God's presence. None of them. That was banned. These leaders of the world, and isn't it interesting, they all come from the same bloodlines. They'll never see God because they are following in the pattern of Cain. And so if you read and understand the story of Cain and Abel, you'll understand how this has progressed and how they are given protection by God. But it's a short-lived protection, and it isn't all-encompassing. But one of the provisos is that, one, they tell the innocents what they're really about. And that's exactly what they do through the movies, through everything. All of this deception is told to us. But we have to have eyes and ears to see and hear it. And that's where the Bible comes in. It teaches us that. And without that understanding, it's a bit confusing to figure out their game plan. But we know in the end they're banished from God's sight, and they will never spend time by His side in the eternal life. And so they want to take as many people down with them as they can. So we got this White House Easter roll at the White House lawn, and 21,000 kids pour in there. Isn't this a symbol that we've got you? We've got you under our spell, right? Well, what is the history of this? And why do they do it? It's ridiculous. If they were really honest, they'd be dealing with severe problems. They'd be solving hunger. We don't need to have people starving in the streets. Look at the moral decay. We got a guy running around in Cleveland now who went up for no reason and shot an elderly man, 75 years old. And now he's on the run, and this was put up on Facebook. The actual killing was put up on Facebook for 3 hours before it was taken down. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, the owner of Facebook, he's an Illuminati agent, works for the powers that be. They can have algorithms and things to get rid of that within a second, or even not to allow it. But they allowed it for at least 3 hours because they want people to see this. It's the moral decay. And plus, this guy who did this said he's killed 14 other people. He's still on the run 2 days later, and he promises to kill 14 more. So this is the kind of world we live in. And people say to me, because I live near Mexico, sometimes I take a drive because it's very quiet there once you get through Tijuana. They go, how dangerous is that? And I say, it's not as dangerous as walking down the streets of San Diego. I'll tell you that right now. You just don't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time here more than you can in Mexico when you really think about it. And that's just me and my experiences. I know when I lived in Italy, it was a lot safer than here. That was back in the 80s, though. But getting back to this White House ceremony. So here we have this message, this occult symbolism. The rabbit, ears behind the Marine singing the national anthem, who looks like a Revolutionary War soldier. Check it out. It's a little clip on CNN at only about 20 seconds. And it took place on Monday, 10:26 a.m. Eastern Time. So he's overseeing this occult ceremony. Well, when did it start? What is this history? The first annual White House Easter egg roll was held on April 22 in 1878 after President Rutherford B. Hayes agreed to open the White House grounds on Easter Monday to children who want to roll Easter eggs. Now, don't you think he understood the occult significance? In 1885, young egg rollers marched into the East Room hoping for a personal audience with the head occultist, Mr. Cleveland. When he came down from his office to greet them, he was charmed, and indoor egg-rolling receptions became customary. In 1889, President Harrison, added music to the Easter egg roll, ordering the United States Marine Band, known as the President's Own, play lively tunes while children romped around the South Lawn. Say that nothing. Now, this is, it goes on to say, quote, nothing that is in this article of diet should be destroyed. District of Columbia Food Administrator Charles Wilson announced on March 3, 1918, that wartime restrictions on food consumption meant the destruction of eggs as part of the Easter Monday egg roll could not be allowed, and that the 1918 egg roll was canceled. In 1921, the White House Easter egg roll with music from the Marine Band was revived. President Warren G. Harding, First Lady Florence Harding, and presidential pet Lady Boy, an Airedale Terrier, were on hand, along with characters from the children's play Alice and the White Rabbit. There's got to be some really good significance about that. I'm just filled with these I've seen these Illuminati Rabbits everywhere. In fact, I turned on the old Turner Classic Movie channel the other day, and guess what movie it was on? Harvey. That was played right on Easter, or the day after, and that's where, Jimmy Stewart has this mysterious invisible rabbit friend, a puka, which is basically an occult figure from the Celtics. And you know what Harvey's all about if you've watched old movies like I do. So you got to have rabbits everywhere. Now, this Easter egg roll was broadcast on the radio, first time in 1929. But then came the Jesuit-orchestrated World War II, and festivities completely stopped for 2 years. Then food conservation efforts caused President Truman to reluctantly cancel the 1946 and 47 Easter egg roll. From 1948, now this is interesting, from 1948 to 52, the Truman renovation of the White House made the South Lawn a construction zone, and the Easter egg roll was canceled. So they've had it going on for 140 years, folks, with certain cancellations. Now, in 69, the tradition of the official White House Easter Bunny, occult, I'm adding the words occult, festivities to bring in kids under this occult satanic ceremony. That's really what it is. The Easter Bunny was born again. Here we go. The first bunny came out, and in '69, First Lady Pat Nixon's staff members put on a white jumpsuit and Peter Rabbit mask and shook children's hands along the South Lawn circular driveway. Then in 1981, President Reagan and First Lady Nancy Reagan hosted a hunt for the wooden eggs. Now they're making them wooden. I guess, I don't know why. That bore the signatures of famous people. Wooden eggs soon became the official White House Easter egg keepsake, so you can keep the eggs. Okay, that's why they did it. Now in '98, I guess was Clinton was in. The White House Easter egg roll festivities were broadcast live on the internet for the first time. And in 2009, for the first time, that's Obama, tickets to the White House Easter egg roll were distributed online. Wow. And then the Washington Post did a big story about the Easter egg roll and said it won't be as big this year because of nobody likes Donald Trump. But they did draw 21,000 kids to partake in these occult ceremonies. So here we have it. Finally, I'm thinking, boy, now we're in really deep trouble. Trump's giving his occult buddies the message right there for everybody to see. So what is the occult symbolism of the rabbit? Now go back to my show Monday about the occult symbolism of the Easter holiday and Easter eggs and all that stuff. But let's listen to this little presentation about Illuminati Rabbits Everywhere. All right, let's play this clip. It's called Illuminati Rabbits Everywhere. Why? Done in about 2 years ago. And he was, this guy who did this presentation was probably as interested as I am regarding the cult significance of the Easter Bunny. Here we go. Let me pot it up. Trying to get this going. Having a little trouble, but I'll get it. Here we go.
Mystery of the out-of-place rabbit. By now you probably have understood that the rabbit symbolizes something that has to do with the Illuminati. We see rabbits out of place everywhere in our consciousness. We see it in music videos. We see it in movies. We just did a music video on The Good Die Young, and there was a rabbit in that scene under the blankets with the child next to a moon. We also see rabbits in I Pet Goat. We see rabbits everywhere in videos and movies. And this video is meant to assist us in deciphering what it is this rabbit means. Curiously, there's very little information when you do a Google search on Illuminati and rabbits, yet we know that they use this as a famous symbol. And so what we're going to do here is do our own research on the rabbit and what in fact it means. So I started my rabbit hole journey here at the Easter Bunny Wikipedia webpage, and I started reading through here, and it talks about a little bit of the history of the Easter Bunny. Now, obviously, this is the prepackaged version of what we were supposed to believe, but it revealed some interesting points here. It talks about hair sometimes occurring in illuminated manuscripts in northern Europe here. We also see these three hairs, or bunny rabbits, in a circle here in Germany, which is where they're saying that a lot of this rabbit imagery actually stemmed from. We also see, and now remember this image here with the three rabbits in this top of this window here, because we're going to come back to that in a little bit. But it talks a little bit about the history of the rabbit and why we color eggs. It talks about the color of blood in recognition of the blood of the sacrificed Christ, okay? And that rabbits are seen as fertility. symbols because they can actually be pregnant with their next brood before they give birth to the one that they have. Okay? Now, that took me to another website, and that was this one. This is a much more comprehensive explanation of the rabbit. The Easter bunny is a symbol of Easter for two reasons. European spring goddess Oster, from which the name Easter comes, had the head of a hare. The date of Easter is determined by the moon, whose symbolism is strongly tied to that of the hare. So it's interesting that we saw a moon next to a rabbit in the video The Good Die Young. Okay, it's tied to the moon. Now, it talks about the Council of Nicaea. Okay, this is a very important date here. Easter had been celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon of March. So Easter is celebrated based on the moon. Okay? Now, they talk about hare hunting was once a common Easter activity in England. Remember that. By the time we get done with this analysis and explanation, you will probably come to your own conclusions on what the Easter Bunny means and why the Illuminati use it as a favorite symbol. But remember this about them hunting the Easter Bunny. Okay? Now,
okay, I'm going to finish it up, and I got to take a break in a few minutes here, and I'm going to finish this up in the next half hour, and then move on to some other things. But in many parts of the world, Easter heralds spring as well as the resurrection of Christ. The nocturnal rabbit, signifying the moon who dies every morning and is resurrected every evening, also represents the rebirth of nature in spring. Both the moon and the rabbit were believed to die in order to be reborn. Therefore, the hare is a symbol of immortality. In Egypt, Osiris, god of the dead, was sacrificed to the Nile each year in the form of a hare to guarantee the annual flooding Egyptian agriculture depended upon. Although the hare is not a symbol for Christ, some analogy might be made to Christ, who was sacrificed in the form of a man for the feeding of God's people. This is the occult using and changing the real significance, the importance of even the birth and death of Christ, who died for our sins. And it's an amazing thing what they do. And think about it. Think about what I just showed, what you saw yesterday as Trump had the rabbit ears beat, the big rabbit standing behind the military soldier singing the national anthem, giving his Illuminati buddies the significance of this, how the real significance, the occult significance they want to pass. And you telling me that we're not in trouble? And the hare, by the way, is the emblem of many lunar goddesses. Many. In legend, the shadows of the moon's surface are believed to be rabbits. Now we know why the big rabbit's running around the White House, right? Hares are thought to be the moon's lovers or brothers. Oh boy, here we go. So anyway, in China, there's a superstition claims that the hare is impregnated through gazing at the moon, and if pregnant woman is touched by the moonlight, her unborn child will grow up with a hare lip. I always wondered where that came in, the hare lip. People have a hare lip. Now we know. I guess it comes from China. But anyway, we're going to come back and finish this up. I got about maybe 9-10 more minutes of it. And think about this. And if you find out any more information about what we're talking about, you can email me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. And yesterday I did say that I was going to give you the 5 inventions that Tesla came up with that the powers that be have taken and are probably using in HARP over in Alaska with electromagnetic weaponry used on ourselves, our people. We'll maybe get to that, or maybe we'll do something else. I'll just have to wait and see. So come back in the second half hour and we'll finish up the Illuminati Rabbits story everywhere they are. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. We're talking about rabbits and the occult significance. So let's get back to Illuminati Rabbits Everywhere.
Many parts of the world, Easter heralds spring as well as the resurrection of Christ. The nocturnal rabbit, signifying the moon, who dies every morning and is resurrected every evening, also represents the rebirth of nature in spring. Both the moon and the rabbit were believed to die in order to be reborn. Therefore, the hare is a symbol of immortality. Now, this is where it gets interesting. In Egypt, Osiris, god of the dead, was sacrificed to the Nile each year in the form of a hare to guarantee the annual flooding. Egyptian agriculture depended on. So, sacrifice of the hare. Okay? Now, who is Osiris? Osiris was the wife of Isis. Okay? Osiris was the wife Isis. Okay? Now, I'm reading Alice in Wonderland, the wiki article, and I see that the whole story stemmed from 3 children. We saw the 3 rabbits, remember, going down a river. Well, what do you think the name of the river was? It was called the Isis River. And this is the story from which Alice in Wonderland stemmed. Now, I tried to get a hold of, the story and kind of read through it, but it's very cryptic and very hard to follow. But here's the reference here. Isis and 3 young daughters of Henry. This is where the story came from. They're going up a river, okay? So, obviously, Alice in Wonderland has pharaonic roots from the pharaohs and from Egypt. And those roots, of course, as we've covered on previous videos, go back to the Nephilim and the secrets that they taught men. Some of those secrets being the ability to create the pyramids. Okay? So, back to the story. Although the hare is not a symbol for Christ, some analogy might be made to Christ, who was sacrificed in the form of a man for the feeding of God's people. Now, think about that statement, okay? It's not Christ, but they're saying that it's an analogy. What kind of analogy? A negative analogy, in my opinion. And the picture is probably starting to form itself in your consciousness too, that this was a knock on Christ's sacrifice. I'm going to show you much more information to prove that as well. Now it's saying here that in a legend, the shadow of the moon's surface was believed to be rabbits. The hares are thought to be moon's lovers or brothers. Talks about Chinese superstition, gazing at the moon. Now, talks here about rabbits are much more common than hares in the New World than in the Old, and vice versa. At the time of Christ, there were no rabbits in Israel, but the child Jesus most likely saw many hares as he was growing up. Nevertheless, there is a legend about a young rabbit who for 3 days waited anxiously for his friend Jesus to return to the Garden of Gethsemane, little knowing what had become of him. Early on Easter morning, Jesus returned to his favorite garden and was welcomed by his animal friend. That evening, when Jesus' disciples came into the garden to pray, they discovered a path of beautiful larkspurs, each blossom bearing the image of a rabbit in its center as remembrance of the patience and hope of this faithful little creature. The Buddhist, the hare is a symbol of self-sacrifice. Okay? Now this goes on and on with the pagan roots of the rabbit. Okay? But this is what I want to address at this point. I thought to myself, okay, obviously we have Illuminati roots. So I did some investigation and I found this artwork here. Zoom it out a little bit so you guys can see it. And this is obvious Illuminati imagery here. Okay? We have the pillars of Boaz. We have the pillars of Boaz, and we have an obvious rabbit here. The all-seeing eye atop it. Okay? With the black and white checkers all around it. So then I thought to myself, I typed in 322 and rabbit, and something amazing popped up. It was this video. This is a band called The Frightened Rabbit. Okay? And they performed in Milwaukee on March 22nd, 322. Now, that sort of, alarmed me a bit. And I thought, okay, there's got to be more to that. I can't just say they're Illuminati because they performed on March 22nd. But as you know with truth, sometimes you know it, but you just have to prove it. So I want you to watch this segment of the video here. I want you to tell me what you see.
Okay, apparently you can't see it, but I'm looking at it. And I see a guy playing the guitar. Very difficult to make out anything here. So,
as you see here, the camera pans away, and we have what looks like the three hairs on the ceiling and the lights. But watch this.
Okay, I'm watching.
And there's our pyramid in the background, illuminated behind the Frightened Rabbits band. Apparently this band has some popularity. Okay, but that's not all. So I did a search on 322, the Frightened Rabbit, which is the name of the band. And they actually performed at 322 West Armitage Avenue in Chicago, Illinois. Okay.
My hometown.
So we have an address that matches the 322 as well. That's no accident. This was on August 3rd.
I forget what the 322 symbol is. Somebody email me and let me know.
So then I thought, okay, is there any relation to Jesus? And I found this video. It's a movie trailer, the very first one that is somewhat obscure, of the Passion of the Christ. And it has almost 100,000 views. And in the description, we see the person who posted this. People had asked him what the background music was. And he said that it was from Rabbit Proof Fence movie. And that will be our next rabbit hole journey, to watch this movie and see if there are any more clues. But obviously, there is a connection to what is going on here.
Okay, enough on the rabbit, but isn't that interesting? When we look back to that, just Google the CNN little clip that they played yesterday, and Trump giving the rabbit, giving us the occult symbolism to his Illuminati buddies. And anyway, if you find anything out more on the rabbit, let me know. And I know there was a lot of significance of remember the movie Shining and Stanley Kubrick? And the rabbit was in that movie as well. So apparently it has a real occult significance. And basically, again, we boil down to the fact that they're denigrating Jesus Christ and Christianity. And there we have Donald Trump showing his true colors yesterday at this occult Easter egg roll. All right, I talked about Tesla and the 5 inventions that that we don't know much about, that are in the hands of the bad guys. But I thought what I'd do is this, something more, a little, sounds more mundane, but I thought I'd play some of this. The Flat Earth Facts, the top 5 reasons no longer to believe in the globe theory. So I thought I'd just play that for you. And I have not even pre-screened it, so I'll be as excited about it as you. So let's listen. Okay, so here's a guy named Andrew who put this together for us. The Flat Earth Facts, top 5 reasons no longer to believe in the globe. I say go to Genesis, and I'll tell you what. I went through maybe 75 to 80 verses in the Bible, and trying to pinpoint whether it's a globe, or it's round and stationary as a globe, or flat. I'm of the contention that it's flat. And I know some people in the Christian world believe it's round and stationary, but I tend to disagree. But anyway, here we go. Here's Andrew telling us about the 5 top reasons to no longer believe in the globe. Here we go. Where is he?
Hi, my name's Andrew, and I love God. I'm a born-again man who has the Spirit of God. I don't like labels, but I must say that in 2016, I became a biblical flat earther. Now, before you call me nuts or absurd or off of my rocker, just know that I believed in the globe ball earth model for 29 years of my life. Basically my entire life, up until 6 months ago. When I first heard the term flat earth, I laughed and mocked and called anyone who believed that the earth was flat was crazy as hell. What I found, however, is that the more I looked and listened to them, and the more that I considered that the earth could be flat, it all started to add up, and the proof kept on stacking up. I love space, the concept and the idea of the heliocentric model, but there are so many flaws in it that I can no longer believe something that has no proof, as the ball earth model has none. Make no mistake, you must research something is flat earth on your own, and I'd love for you to learn the top 5 reasons why I became a biblical flat earther in 2016. Please keep an open mind, and thanks for watching my video. Here's the top 5 reasons that I no longer believe in the globe ball earth in 2016. Number 1. Space is fake. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Did you know that there is no real true photo of the Earth from space? We're taught that these images are, but even NASA themselves openly admit that all these images are done in Photoshop. They are composite computer-generated images. And if you look close, you can see all the discrepancies in each of them, how some of the continents do not match up in size, and how the clone tool was used to create the clouds. NASA even took the liberty to Photoshop the word sex into one such cloud formation. This can be noticed when flipping their composite upside down and zooming in. Were they bored? Or is this the calling card of Disney, as we've seen them do such similar subliminal messaging in such children movies as The Lion King and Tangled? I'm coming to find that NASA and Disney have a lot in common. Every aspect of space footage is fake. We've seen water bubbles in footage and other discrepancies such as flimsy hatch lids, which clearly show this is not real whatsoever. Footage from the ISS is easily faked using a green screen and what is known as a zero-G plane, as I'm sure of other methods as well. The plane flies high up in the air and then does a basic nosedive, producing an environment where everything is just in free fall. We can see here that this woman seems a little bit on edge and is clearly feeling unsafe, as I imagine most would in a plane that's in a free fall. Nations all over the world fake space, and it's just a money-making scheme. NASA alone pulled in a whopping $18.5 billion in 2016. Reason to lie? Yeah, very much. Number 2, there is no curve. Last time I checked, a ball shape has to have a curve, somewhere. But in fact, once you truly look, you will find none, anywhere. There's none. The proof of this is in objects that can be seen from certain distances over water.
Okay, so he's showing us some of these distances. And speaking of water, that's good old Max, my horse, who's masquerading as a dog, drinking. He usually does that during my show to let me know he's still around. And Max, we're talking about your favorite subject. Yes. But anyway, when you, there's a place in Chicago you can go, my hometown. You can see 60 miles, you go over into Michigan, 60 miles across the Lake Michigan, you can see the full Chicago skyline. And in fact, the entire Sears Tower and all other buildings along the shore in Chicago can be seen in a photograph done by a guy by the name of Joshua Nowicki of the Chicago skyline. This is proof positive. The earth is flat. And even it was they had to discount it, so the weatherman from Channel 7 in Chicago or something saw this video and quickly said it was a mirage. What? Yeah, they'll go to extremes to prove their lies. But anyway, think about it. You would not be able, if there was a curve based on NASA statistics, you know, what's the diameter, 12,000 feet, and the curvature they give us, you would not be able to see anything but maybe the tip of the Sears Tower. Okay? You can see the whole thing, proving the earth is flat. Let's get back to this and see what else he shows us. There we go. Got some music now to get us through this, which is always nice. The height of the tower, where it would be in relation to the horizon.
There are so many examples of this now, and certainly the lighthouse is one very great example. In his book, Proofs That the Earth is Not a Globe, Howard Hendry exposes this truth and gives us many good examples of so many lighthouses that should not be observable at certain distances and hidden behind an exact amount of curvature. The curve formula for the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared, and is nowhere to be found anywhere at all. I found a very detailed video called Flat Earth, A Mountain of Evidence, that gives one such example of lack of curvature where there should be some. This is a great video to watch, and I highly recommend that you do. Many people who are now waking up are out there trying to find the curve or prove the lack thereof. We've been consistent in finding that there is none, using simple tests over bodies of water where there should be an exact amount of curvature due to gravity's supposed force on the water, producing a curve. But we have found that there really is none at all. The only reason to doubt this fact is from false curvature that you've been shown in many aspects, and we must not forget the mass deception shown to us from evil corporations such as NASA, and even our own public schooling systems, or as I like to call them, the indoctrination centers. The textbooks in our schools are written in favor of the elite. Before he left us, Michael Jackson tried to warn us all and tell us of this deception. Personally, the school system failed me miserably and did nothing to prepare me for the real world. Many people I know agree with this as well. I believe we are simply trained to become mindless worker bees for the favor of those in power, and not to think on our own. They do not like that. Another place we see false curvature can be found from what's called a fisheye lens. As a photographer, I know personally how these lenses work, and they simply distort a straight line, such as the horizon. It's easy to tell the true nature of a straight line, say the horizon, when it is in the direct center of the frame. Number 3, no movement. Movement of the Earth, whether it is the 1,000-mile-per-hour spin, wobble on its axis, or the blindingly fast speeds it's going around the sun or moving through the Milky Way, they are never observed, felt, or even recorded ever in history. It's never been measured or have been found to move, and just speculated in theories. It's perfectly still, and we can prove this using science and repeatable experiments. The gyroscope is an instrument that will retain its rigidity in space and should appear to turn if the surface it is on is rotating, such as the Earth should. So in fact, if the Earth were spinning at all, we would notice this movement in the gyroscope. However, we can see that we observe no motion. We are perfectly still and going nowhere. The Michelson-Morley experiment also found this as well. When the experiment found out that the Earth was not spinning, along comes Einstein to the rescue to make up his theory of relativity, which is just a theory and has never been fully proven.
The Jesuits took him from zero to hero.
Airy's failure was an experiment that proved that the heavenly bodies are in motion, while we are not, using telescopes with water. Telescopes have to be very slightly tilted to get the starlight going down the axis of the tube because the Earth's speed around the sun. Airy filled the telescope with water that greatly slowed down the speed of the light inside the telescope, and found that he did not have to change the angle of the telescope. This showed that the starlight was already coming in at the correct angle, so that no change was needed. This demonstrated that it was the stars moving relative to a stationary Earth, and not the fast-orbiting Earth moving relative to the comparatively stationary stars. If it was the telescope moving, he would have had to change the angle. Another strange fact I'd never considered is the fact that airplanes would have to do all sorts of maneuvers just to land on a surface that's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour in one direction. It would simply be impossible for them to land, and wouldn't they fly faster to their location if flying against the spin of the ball? This crazy mess does not work, and it's far from what is real and what we see and observe. In fact, flight simulations always use a flat, non-rotating Earth to train pilots, and the training of these pilots is extremely important for the safety of you, myself, and many, many more. The flight simulation is further explained in detail in Edward Henry's book, The Greatest Lie on Earth, proof that our world is not a moving globe. Number 4. Water. The nature of water is always flat when left unmanipulated. It always finds its level. It never curves or bends. The only time it does so is with what's called surface tension. And surely surface tension doesn't have waves like our oceans do. It's called water level for a reason, and not water curval. No matter what container it is in, water will always remain flat. Number 5. Horizon always rises to eye level. No matter what height an observer on the Earth will rise to, the horizon will keep on rising to eye level, which is impossible on any size ball whatsoever. Any height you rise on a ball, the horizon would stay fixed in place, but this is not what we observe. The horizon keeps on rising at any height, clearly indicating a flat plane we are on instead of a ball.
Okay, there's Andrew's 5 reasons, and it's interesting. They say the sun, the Illuminists say the sun is 93 million miles away, and that is a interesting number that they use in occult symbology as well. Sun is much, much smaller, and if you do use a test with a sextant, an old way of navigating, you'll find it's about 3,000 miles away. So I was thinking yesterday, boy, I wish I could just prove this by taking a voyage. It'd be a long voyage from certain places. But I'm telling you, there's one way we will finally know. When we reach heaven, and God, really, we look down and basically there it'll be. I never like to say I told you so, but maybe I'll just do it one time. And I'll say, I told you so. The earth was flat. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.